Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Wednesday, March 28th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap last night's NBA action, look ahead to tonight's action, and make a pick for the ESPN game tonight. I'll recap the NHL games from last night and look ahead to tonight's slate of games and go over the NHL standings. So I'm going to start going over NHL things today with the playoffs approaching in 2 weeks. I will do my NHL ReDraft from last year. We'll do the NIT recap and look ahead to the final for tomorrow night. Go over some key NBA news and the ongoing saga between the New York Giants and Odell Beckham Jr. And I'll close out the podcast with more random MLB predictions that I forgot to do on my MLB predictions podcast. This is going to be a long one, so if you want to listen to the whole thing, go right ahead. Let's start with the NBA. Big win for the Washington Wizards. They defeated the Spurs 116-106. The Wizards are now 41-33. San Antonio is now 43-32. Markieff Morris put up 15 in the win. LaMarcus Aldridge put up 13 in defeat. Big win for the Washington Wizards. Big win for the Toronto Raptors to hold serve for that one seed in the East, 114-110 over the Denver Nuggets. Toronto improves to 55-20. Denver drops to 40-35. Jonas Valanciunas put up 15 in the win. Nikola Jokic put up 29 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists in defeat. That was a difficult loss for the Nuggets. An impressive win for the Miami Heat, 98-79 over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Miami's now 40-35. Cleveland drops to 44-30. Kelly Olynyk put up 19 points in the win. And LeBron James put up 18 in defeat, as Miami is 7-0 against the Cavaliers in their home building since LeBron James went back to Cleveland. The Rockets beat the Bulls 118-86 as James Harden sat in this game. Houston improves to 61-14. Chicago drops to 24-50. 10 straight wins for Houston. Eric Gordon put up 31 in the win. Lauri Markkanen put up 22 in defeat. The Trailblazers got an impressive win, 107-103 over the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans. Portland improves to 46-28. New Orleans drops to 43-32 as Portland is closing in on that 3 seed in the West. Damian Lillard put up 41 points and 6 assists in the win. Anthony Davis put up 36 points, 14 rebounds in defeat. Drew Holiday had a triple-double in this game, but the Blazers came away victorious. An impressive win for the Indiana Pacers, 92-81 over the Golden State Warriors in Oracle Arena. Indiana improves to 44-31. Golden State drops to 54-20. Victor Oladipo put up 24 in the win. Nick Young put up 12 in defeat, as Golden State is going to be healthy within the next couple days. I'll go over their injury situation coming up on the podcast. Big win for Indiana. The Mavericks beat the Kings 103-97 in the Battle of Tankers. The Mavs are now 23-51 and Sacramento drops to 24-51. Harrison Barnes put up 20 in the win. Scalabiciere put up 19 in defeat. The Clippers defeated the Bucks 105-98 in the nightcap game of the TNT doubleheader. The Clippers improved to 40-34. Milwaukee drops to 39-35. Tobias Harris put up 19 points in the win. Giannis Antetokounmpo put up 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists in defeat. And I had the Clippers on the podcast, and I also had the Cavs, but I was wrong there. So 1-1 with the NBA picks for yesterday. Tonight you have the Knicks at the Sixers. Sixers need that game to improve its standing in the East if they want to move up and try to catch the Cavaliers. They're a half game back of Cleveland. And Cleveland, in the second of a back-to-back, is at Charlotte. That's going to be interesting. Charlotte is actually playing really well right now. They had the overtime win over the Knicks. And they've picked off a couple other good teams recently, too. Well, the Knicks are a bad team, but they've picked off Washington. They've picked off some other decent teams along the way. I wouldn't be shocked if they picked off Cleveland here, especially on the second of a back-to-back. The Nets at the Magic. Trailblazers at the Grizzlies. Let's see if Portland keeps this going. They can't lose here. Hawks at the Timberwolves. Minnesota can't lose to another tanking team. That'd be bad for them. ESPN tonight, you have the Celtics at the Jazz. This would have been Gordon Hayward's return game, but it's not now that he's done for at least the regular season. Give me the Jazz to win this one as they are continuing their push for the playoff spot as the Celtics win streak comes to an end tonight. Clippers at the Suns. The Clippers got to take care of the tanking team as they continue their fight for the 8 seed. And the Mavericks at the Lakers as the Lakers get Brandon Ingram back tonight from injury. Standings really quick in the NBA. I like to go over this on the podcast now. Toronto's 55-20, Boston's 51-23, Cleveland's 44-30, Philadelphia's 43-30. They're a half game behind them, as well as Indiana, who's 44-31. One back in the loss column is Indiana of Cleveland. Washington still hasn't clinched yet, but they're 41-33. Miami's 40-35. Milwaukee dropped to the 8th spot last night, with Miami's winning their loss at 39-35. Detroit's 34-40, Charlotte's 34-41, New York's 27-48, Chicago's 24-50, Brooklyn's 23-51, Orlando's 22-51, and Atlanta is 21-53. Western Conference, Houston's on the verge of locking up the 1 seed, 61-14 on the season. That's really impressive. Golden State 54-20, Portland 46-28, Oklahoma City 44-31, New Orleans and San Antonio tied for 5-6. 43-32. New Orleans has a tiebreaker over San Antonio. Utah's in 7th, 42-32. Minnesota's 8th, 42-33. They're a half game back of Utah. The Clippers are 9th now with their win and Denver's loss last night. They're 40-34, a half game back of Minnesota. Or no, I'm sorry, they're a game and a half back of Minnesota. Denver's 2 games back of Minnesota. They're 40-35. The Lakers are 32-41. Sacramento's 24-51. Dallas is 23-51. Memphis is 20-54. And Phoenix is 19-56. As I mentioned before, with 2 weeks to go until the playoffs, I'll be going over hockey now. The results from last night. A big win for the New Jersey Devils. 4-3 winners over the Carolina Hurricanes. Pavel Zacha got his 7th of the year. And then Phil DiGiuseppe got his 5th of the year to tie it up at 1. Carolina goes up 2-1. Warren Foegele gets his 2nd of the year. Devils tie it on the power play with the goal by Kyle Palmieri, his 22nd of the year. He's been pretty good for the Devils. Noah Hannafin puts the Hurricanes on top in the beginning of the 3rd period with his 10th of the year. Kyle Palmieri again on the power play with his 23rd of the year, ties the game at 3. Stefan Noesen with the game winner, his 12th of the year to make it a 4-3 final. As I mentioned, big win for New Jersey. They improved to 28-8. Carolina drops to 34-32-11. The Islanders, 4-3 winners over the Ottawa Senators. The Islanders are eliminated from playoff contention. They are now 32-35-10. The Senators dropped to 26-39-11. Anders Lee got his 39th on the year on the power play. Matt Duchene got his 24th of the year on the power play. That made it 1-1. Erik Karlsson, his 9th of the year to put Ottawa up 2-1. Anthony Bolivier, 2-2. Brock Nelson made it 3-2. Bolivier got his 17th of the year. Nelson his 18th of the year. Bobby Ryan ties the game at 3 with his 11th of the year. And Andrew Ladd put the Islanders up for good with his 11th of the year to make it a 4-3 final. The Red Wings defeated the Penguins 5-2. That's a bad loss for Pittsburgh as they dropped to 43-28-6. The Red Wings improved 28-38-11. Sidney Crosby with his 27th of the year put the Penguins up first. Nicholas Kronwall, his 4th of the year, ties it up at 1. Franz Nielsen on the power play, his 16th of the year, puts Detroit up 2-1. Detroit makes it 3-1 on a Luke Glendening goal. They make his 10th of the year. Darren Helm's 10th of the year puts it 4-1 Detroit. Chris Letang's 7th of the year makes it 4-2. Luke Glendening, his 5th of the year, or 11th of the year, makes it 5-2 Red Wings final as the Penguins suffer a very bad loss there. A nice win for the Blues in overtime, 3-2 over the San Jose Sharks as they improve to 43-28-5. San Jose drops to 44-23-10. Evander Kane, his 29th of the year, puts San Jose up 1-0. Oscar Sundqvist, his 1st of the year, ties it up at 1 for the Blues. Joe Pavelski on the power play, his 20th of the year, 2-1 San Jose. Vlad Tarasenko on the power play ties it up at 2 for the Blues. And Vlad Tarasenko with another goal to put the Blues up, or to win the game for the Blues in overtime. His 31st of the year. It makes the Blues a 3-2 winner. The Predators defeated the Wild 2-1 in a shootout. The Predators are arguably the league's best team, 49, 16, and 11 on the year. The Wild dropped to 42, 24, and 10. Roman Yossi's 12th of the year makes it 1-0 Nashville. Eric Staal with his 40th of the year late in the third period ties it up at 1. And the lone goal in the shootout was scored by Kyle Turris, who's been an excellent addition to the Predators, and that was a part of the Matt Duchene, the Ottawa trade, that I'll mention later in my redraft. The Jets defeated the Bruins 5-4 in a shootout. Impressive win for Winnipeg as they improved to 47-19 and 10. Boston drops to 47-17 and 11. Brandon Tanev's 5th of the year makes it 1-0 Winnipeg. Ryan Donato's 3rd of the year, 1-1 for Boston. Winnipeg goes up 2-1. Brandon Tanev, 6th of the year. Joe Morrow, 6th of the year, puts Winnipeg up 3-1. Boston gets with 1 on Danton Haynon's power play goal. Ties it up at 3 on the David Pastrnak power play goal. It's 31st of the year. Brandon Tanev, short-handed, puts Winnipeg up 4-3. Torrey Krug on the power play, his 14th of the year, makes it 4-4 in the third. And the shootout game winner, it was scored by Patrick Laine of Winnipeg to get the win for the Jets. The Stars defeated the Flyers 3-2 in overtime. That was a big win for Dallas as they improved to 39-30 and 8. The Flyers dropped to 38-25 and 14. Radek Faksa put his 15th of the year in the net to make it 1-0 Dallas. Travis Konecny, 23rd of the year, ties it up at 1. Ivan Provorov, 2-1. The Flyers, his 14th of the year. Brett Ritchie on the power play, 7th of the year, 2-2. In overtime winner, Alexander Radulov, his 27th of the year, to make the Stars a winner. An impressive win for the Columbus Blue Jackets, 7-3 over the Edmonton Oilers as they improved to 43-29 and 5. Oilers dropped to 34-37 and 6. This was impressive because Columbus was down 3-0. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins started the scoring for Edmonton to put him up 1-0. Connor McDavid shorthanded his 40th of the year, 2-0 Edmonton. Drake Caggiula, 13th of the year on the power play, puts him up 3-0. Here comes Columbus in the first period. Thomas Vanek, his 22nd of the year, makes it 3-1. They get within 1. Artemi Panarin's 26th of the year, 2-3. They tie it up at 3. Thomas Vanek's 23rd of the year. And in the rest of the way it goes, Columbus. Boone Jenner, 12th of the year, 4-3. 5-3 on Cam Atkinson's 20th of the year. 6-3 on Thomas Vanek's 24th of the year. So he had a hat trick in this game. And in the third period, they make it 7-3. Marcus Nudavara puts up Columbus 7-3, his 6th of the year. And last but not least, the Canucks defeated the Ducks 4-1. Nice win for Vancouver. 28-49 now in the year. Ducks dropped to 39-25 and 13. Sam Gagner's 9th of the year put Vancouver up 1-0. Andrew Cagliano ties it for the Ducks 1-1. Alex Baiga, his 1st of the year in the third period, puts Vancouver up 2-1. Brandon Sutter's 9th of the year, 3-1. And his 10th of the year, Sutter's 4-1 for good as the Canucks get the win there. Tonight's slate of games, the NBCSN game. I'll pick the NBCSN games towards Maddie's picks. Rangers Capitals is the game. The Rangers sold off the key players at the trading deadline as Washington is settling in for seeding in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I think Washington wins this game comfortably. And these two teams faced off Monday night, and Washington were 4-2 winners over the Rangers. Were up 4-0 in the first period. Henrik Lundqvist got chased in that game. And then the Rangers made that score look respectable as their youngsters made a good first impression with their lottery pick, Elias Anderson, scoring his first NHL goal in his NHL debut in that game. So give me the Capitals there. Panthers, Maple Leafs, teams battling for playoff positioning there. Flyers, Avalanche is a decent game at 10 o'clock. And in the game that the Vegas Golden Knights have to have against the tanking Arizona Coyotes. Standings real quick. You have in the Atlantic Division a 2-horse race, Tampa Bay and Boston. Tampa Bay 51-21-4 on the year with 106 points. Boston, 47-17-11 on the year, 105 points. Toronto's destined for that 3 spot, 45-24-7 with 97 points. And in the Metro's top 3, you have Washington in first place, 45-24-7 with 97 points. Pittsburgh's in second with 92 points, 43-28-6 on the year. Columbus right behind them, 1 point back with 91 points, 43-29-5. That 10-game win streak really, really, really helped Columbus. Philadelphia's 1 back of Columbus, 2 back of Pittsburgh, 90 points for them. They are 38-25-14. So your second wild card is New Jersey, 40-28-8 with 88 points. And the rest of the wild card, you have Florida still alive with 85 points, 39-28-7 on the year. They're 3 back in New Jersey. Carolina, I don't think's making it. They're 9 back in New Jersey, 34-32-11, 79 points. The rest of the standings is Rangers have 74 points. Islanders have 74. Montreal 68 points. Detroit 67. Ottawa 63. Buffalo at 60. And in the Western Conference Central Division, Nashville leads the way. 49-16-11, 109 points. Winnipeg's 5 points back of them, 47-19-10 with 104 points. Minnesota seems destined for that 3rd spot, barring the Blues the Blues are 3 back of them, 3 points back. Well, it can't be ruled out, but I feel like the Wild are destined for that 3 spot. They're 42-24-10. In the Pacific Division, you have the Vegas Golden Knights, who are probably going to win this division, 48-21-7 on the year with 103 points. San Jose's in second, 44-23-10 with 98 points. The Kings are in third via tiebreaker, 42-28-7 with 91 points. The wild card in the West goes like this. You have St. Louis in the first wild card, 43-28-5 with 91 points. That's impressive considering that they traded away Paul Stastny at the deadline. Mike Yeo deserves a lot of credit with the Blues this season. Anaheim's in the second wild card with 91 points, 39-25-13. Colorado's 1 point back of Anaheim for that last wild card spot, 41-27-8 with 90 points. Nate McKinnon is a Hart Trophy candidate this year. Dallas is lingering. They're four back of Colorado, 5 back of that wild card spot. I don't think Dallas gets in. They're 39-30-8 with 86 points. And the teams that are eliminated, you have Calgary with 80 points, Edmonton 74, Chicago 72, Vancouver 65, and Arizona 63. So it should be a fun race down the stretch. Let's see if Florida and Colorado can make things interesting, or perhaps Dallas. I don't think Carolina is going to make it, or I think Carolina's done. So we'll see. There. My redraft for hockey, I'll do this now since we're on talking about hockey. I'm going to just redraft the first round. We'll see how many picks are different and how many picks remain the same. The first one, I'll give it away right now. It remains the same. Nico Hischier, center. The Devils don't do a do-over here as they take their guy in Hischier, who's been solid as a rookie this season. Hischier, as of now, has 46 points as a rookie, and he'll be a top 6 forward for the foreseeable future. As I mentioned, Hischier was their pick. Philadelphia Flyers, I made a change here. Elias Pettersson, the center. Pettersson has had an amazing year in the Swedish League and is making the Canucks look like they got a steal with the 5th pick. Pettersson, as of now, has 56 points in the Swedish League, and the Flyers probably take Pettersson here instead of the guy they originally took, who was Nolan Patrick. 3, Dallas Stars, Callan Foote, defenseman. Foote has a chance to be a franchise defenseman someday, as he's shown a ton of potential in the Western League and in the World Juniors. Something tells me the Stars may regret not taking Foote here, as Foote will thrive on the Tampa Bay Lightning. The actual pick, Miro Heiskanen, who's also a defenseman. Colorado Avalanche, Cal Maker, defenseman. Maker is having a solid season in college and played well in the World Juniors as well. Maker, as of now, has 21 points on the season. It won't be surprising to see Maker get called up to the Avs at some point this season to help them perhaps get into the playoffs since they're 1 point back of the Ducks. The actual pick, Maker. 5, Vancouver Canucks, Cody Glass, the center. With Pettersson off the board, the Canucks go with Glass, who's having an outstanding season in the Western League. Glass has a staggering 102 points with the Portland Winterhawks this season, and it would be cool to see the Golden Knights call up Glass come playoff time. The actual pick, Elias Pettersson, he's also a center. Vegas Golden Knights, Nolan Patrick, he's a center As I mentioned, he's on the Flyers. With Glass off the board, the Knights go with Patrick, who's been underwhelming for the Flyers this season as a rookie. Patrick has 24 points and has room to grow as a player. Their actual pick, Cody Glass, who's also a center. 7, New York Rangers from the Arizona Coyotes. Morgan Frost, center. Frost has proven to be a steal at where the Flyers took him, as he's putting up a monster season in the Ontarian League. Frost has put up a staggering 112 points so far this season, has a chance to be called up for the playoffs for the Flyers. The actual pick, Elias Anderson, who's also a center. 8, Buffalo Sabres, Casey Mittelstadt, center. Mittelstadt had a great season with the Minnesota this season in college and now is playing with the Sabres. Mittelstadt put up 34 points with the Golden Gophers and won't be surprising to see him succeed with the Sabres right away. The actual pick, Mittelstadt. 9, Detroit Red Wings, Nick Suzuki, center. Suzuki is performing very well in the Ontarian League this season. Suzuki has put up 100 points this season. It would be cool to see him get some run with the Golden Knights this season. The actual pick, Michael Rasmussen, who's also a center. Florida Panthers, Oleski Hiponiemi. He's a winger. Hiponiemi was picked by the Panthers, but in the second round has proven to be a steal at where they selected him. Hiponiemi has put up a staggering 112 points this season and will likely be on the Panthers come next season. The actual pick, Owen Tippett, who's a winger. Los Angeles Kings, Martin Necas, winger. Necas has shown some promise in the Czech League as well as the World Juniors. He did see some time with the Hurricanes this season and probably will be on the team full-time starting next season. The actual pick, Gabriel Velarde, who's a center. Carolina Hurricanes, Elias Anderson, he's a center. Anderson showed a ton of promise and potential in his time in the Swedish League as well as at the World Junior and in the AHL. Anderson had 14 points in 22 games in the Swedish League and 7 points in 7 games in the World Juniors. He is now finishing the season on the Rangers and will likely be on the Rangers full-time starting next season. The actual pick, Martin Necas, and he's a winger, as I mentioned before. 13, Vegas Golden Knights from the Winnipeg Jets, Timothy Liljegren, defenseman. Liljegren has shown a ton of potential and promise this season for the Swedish League and the American Hockey League as well as the World Junior. Don't be shocked if Liljegren is with the Maple Leafs come playoff time. The actual pick, Nick Suzuki, he's a center. Tampa Bay Lightning, 14, Juuso Valimaki, defenseman. Valimaki has shown a ton of potential and promise in the Western League as well as the World Junior. He'll probably be on the Flames full-time starting next season. The actual pick, Callan Foote, and he's also a defenseman. Vegas Golden Knights at 15 from the New York Islanders, Robert Thomas, center. Thomas is having a great season in the Ontarian League and showed potential in the World Juniors. Thomas has put up 46 points in 27 games in the Ontarian League and will probably start next season with the Blues. The actual pick, Eric Brandstrom, defenseman. 16, Calgary Flames, Miro Heiskanen, defenseman. Heiskanen drops in the redraft as the Flames would get a possible steal here with Valimaki off the board. Heiskanen hasn't really put up the stats to prove his top 3 pick status, but has room to grow as a player. Maybe he does end up playing for the Stars at some point next season. The actual pick, as I mentioned, Juuso Valimaki, who's also a defenseman. 17, Toronto Maple Leafs, Michael Rasmussen, he's a center. With Liljegren off the board, the Leafs take a forward in Rasmussen, who would be a steal in this spot. He's shown a ton of potential in the Western League and will likely start next season with the Red Wings. The actual pick, as I mentioned, Timothy Liljegren, the defenseman. 18, Boston Bruins, Euro Vankinen, defenseman. The Bruins don't do a do-over here with Vankinen, who has shown capability to be a top 4 defenseman on a contender someday, as he's shown a ton of promise in the Finnish League as well as the World Juniors. Don't be surprised if Vankinen starts next season in B-Town. The actual pick, Vankinen. 19, San Jose Sharks, Gabriel Velarde, center. Velarde dropping this far would be a massive steal for the Sharks in theory here, as Velarde has shown potential in the Ontarian League as well as the World Juniors. He could end up starting next season on the Kings. The actual pick, Joshua Norris, who's also a center. 20, St. Louis Blues, Joshua Norris, the center. With Thomas off the board, the Blues go with another center in Norris, who had a solid showing in college with the Michigan Wolverines this season. Norris had 22 points in 34 games with the Wolverines and will probably end up playing on the Sharks next season. The actual pick, Robert Thomas, who's a center. 21, New York Rangers, Eli Tolvanen, a wing. Tolvanen proved to be a steal where the Predators selected him as he was very coveted at the trade deadline when the Preds were exploring deals to improve their team. Tolvanen performed well in the KHL and the World Junior and withstood pat at the trade deadline and will end up being a factor for the Preds come playoff time. The actual pick, Philip Chytil, who's a center. 22, Edmonton Oilers, Kailer Yamamoto, who's a winger. No do-over for the Oilers as they take Yamamoto, who's shown a ton of potential in the Western League. That earned him a call-up to the Oilers. Yamamoto looks like a top 6 forward for the foreseeable future. The actual pick, Yamamoto. 23, Arizona Coyotes from the Minnesota Wild, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, who's a defenseman. Olivier Joseph has shown potential in the Quebec League and could be on somebody's top 4 someday. Olivier Joseph will probably be on the Coyotes to start next season. The actual pick, Olivier Joseph. 24, Winnipeg Jets from the Columbus Blue Jackets via the Vegas Golden Knights. Christian Velisinen, the wing. No do-over here as the Jets go with Velisinen, who has shown a ton of potential in the Finnish League this season. He should start next season with the Jets. The actual pick, Velisinen. 25, Montreal Canadiens, Shane Bowers, center. Bowers has shown a ton of potential in college this season as well as the World Juniors, and the Senators are going to end up regret trading him to the Avs in the Matt Duchene trade. Bowers could very well start next season with the Avs. The actual pick, Ryan Poehling, center. 26, Dallas Stars from the Chicago Blackhawks. Jake Ottinger, goalie, Boston College. No do-over here as the Stars select perhaps either their future franchise goalie or a trade asset down the road since Ben Bishop is signed long-term. Ottinger was outstanding in college this season. It will be interesting to see what the Stars end up doing with him next season. The actual pick, Ottinger. 27, Philadelphia Flyers from the Washington Capitals via the St. Louis Blues. Ryan Poehling, center. With Frost off the board, the Flyers take another center in Poehling, who had a solid season for St. Cloud. Poehling has a chance to crack the Habs lineup next season. The actual pick, Morgan Frost, who's a center. 28, Ottawa Senators. Jason Robertson, wing. With Bowers off the board, the Sens go with Robertson, who has shown a ton of potential in the Ontarian League. I won't be surprised if he makes the Stars roster out of training camp next season. The actual pick, Shane Bowers, who's a center. 29, Chicago Blackhawks from the Anaheim Ducks via the Dallas Stars. Henry Jokiharju, defenseman. No do-over here for the Blackhawks as they take Jokiharju, who has potential to be a top 4 defenseman someday for a team, perhaps the Blackhawks. Jokiharju has shown a ton of potential in the Western League, and he could end up seeing time on the Blackhawks next season. The actual pick, Jokiharju. 30, Nashville Predators. Klim Kostin, center. With Tolvanen off the board, the Preds go with another forward in Kostin, who's shown potential in the American Hockey League this season as well as the World Juniors. Don't be surprised if Kostin cracks the Blues roster next season. The actual pick, Eli Tolvanen, who's a winger. 31, St. Louis Blues from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Eric Brandstrom, defenseman. With Kostin off the board, the Blues take Brandstrom, who would have been a total steal at this spot. Brandstrom has shown potential in the Swedish League and the World Juniors and probably will be on the Golden Knights next season. The actual pick, Klim Kostin, who's a center. That is my NHL mock or redraft from last year. Now I'm going to go over the NIT from yesterday, as I got both of my picks correct with Utah and Penn State. Utah, as a 2 seed, defeated the 4-seeded Western Kentucky 69-64. As I mentioned, I had Utah. Justin Bibbins had 19 in the win. Justin Johnson put up 24 in defeat. 4-seeded Penn State defeated 4-seeded Mississippi State 70-65 in the semifinal, as Tony Carr put up 21 in the win. Tyson Carter put up 19 in defeat. Tomorrow night at the Garden, you have Utah and Penn State. Utah's a 2 seed. Penn State's a 4 seed. 7 o'clock on ESPN2. I'll pick this game on the podcast tomorrow. Some NBA injury news. Kevin Durant's going to be back tomorrow night for their game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And also good news for the Warriors. Klay Thompson is coming back soon. I think he's only missing 1 or 2 more games, and they'll have him back to ride out the string, and they're destined for the 2 seed, in my opinion. Bad news for the Cleveland Cavaliers is Kevin Love is in concussion protocol, and he's missing tonight's game against the Hornets. Isaiah Thomas is going to be out for the season. He's getting hip surgery. He's actually played really well with the Lakers since being traded. I'm fascinated to see where he ends up next season as he's in a contract year. The Giants' Odell Beckham Jr. situation is still a mess. Odell Beckham Jr. could very well be traded. Adam Schefter today reported that the Giants are seeking 2 first-round picks for Odell. The Giants keep denying that they're not shopping Odell. Meanwhile, they clearly are, in my opinion, as they're asking for 2 first-rounders for him. Adam Schefter predicted on NFL Live today on ESPN that Odell will get traded for a first and a third. He didn't say to what team in particular. I think Odell's gone, and this would be a serious hit to the Giants. If they get rid of Odell Beckham Jr., they're destined to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL, and they get a top 5 pick yet again in the 2019 draft. And if they don't trade out of that 2 spot, they're taking a quarterback there. Everyone thinks that they're taking Barkley or Chubb. I think they're taking a quarterback unless they trade down, because the Jets offered that trade that they made with the Colts to the Browns, who said no. If they offered it to the Browns, they had to have offered it to the Giants, and the Giants passed on it. So I think that the Giants are insistent on taking a quarterback there, although they're not admitting it to anybody because they don't want the Manning family and Eli, obviously, to be disappointed. Lastly, before I go, I'm going to throw out some fun predictions for the baseball season as it starts tomorrow. I'll go over all the matchups on tomorrow's podcast. These predictions I forgot to do on the MLB Predictions podcast because I went long on that one. So here's some random ones that I didn't think about yesterday as I was doing the podcast, but I thought about last night that I think about sharing. Here we go. I think Jose Ramirez regresses for the Indians. He was their best offensive player last season, top 5 in the American League MVP voting. I think he regresses to closer to the guy he was in 2016, and that would be considered a disappointment for a player that was the top 5 in the MVP last year. I think Francisco Lindor will be the Indians' best position player this year. Another bold prediction. Some team scores 20 runs in a game this season. The most likely candidates are the Yankees and the Astros. The Nationals did it in a game last year against the Mets. So I think some team will do it again this season. Perhaps it's the Yankees against the bad Orioles pitching staff, or the Astros against the bad Oakland Athletics, or Texas Rangers pitching staff. That'll be interesting. Another one. Aaron Judge has a 4 home run game. I think this is going to happen. We haven't had a 4 home run game. We did have one last year, actually, with Scooter Gennett. But I think we don't get them often. I know Josh Hamilton had one in 2012 for the Rangers against Baltimore in Camden Yards. I think the player that does it this year is Aaron Judge. I could see it being at Yankee Stadium against a bad Orioles pitching staff, or say the Marlins come into town, which the Marlins do go to Yankee Stadium in April this season. It could be against them. It could be against anybody. I just think that Aaron Judge is going to have a 4 homer game this season. 7 no-hitters will be thrown. The guys who I think will do it: Jose Quintana of the Cubs, James Paxton of the Mariners, Luis Severino of the Yankees, Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers, Steven Strasburg of the Nationals, Jake Arrieta of the Phillies, and Noah Syndergaard of the Mets. More major injuries derail contenders. We've seen this at the very end of spring training with Justin Turner breaking his wrist, Greg Bird with the fracture in his ankle, Chris Sale has a hip issue, but he's available to start opening day. And there's also one more injury to a contender I'm not thinking of. But those are the 3 that stand out. And who knows, perhaps there's another one down the road that could hurt a team. Maybe a Kershaw injury, or Trout's been hurt the last couple years too. Obviously, Bird would have been a candidate for this, but he's already hurt. Masahiro Tanaka has an elbow problem. CC Sabathia has been on the disabled list a lot over the last few years with the Yankees, although he's redefined himself as a pitcher. Sonny Gray of the Yankees. Garrett Cole's been on the disabled list a lot in his career. So we'll see. The White Sox and the Phillies surprise people early but fade late in the season. I think these two teams could be flirting with 500 come June, and they fall out of the race in July and realize that they're a year away as they trade away some cheap veterans who are not a part of the future for guys that could help them in the future, as both of those teams are primed to be contenders in the 2019 season. Bryce Harper wins the Home Run Derby. This is an easy call because the Home Run Derby and All-Star Game will take place in D.C. this season, and it's just fitting for the Nationals' face of the franchise to win the Home Run Derby in his perhaps final season with Washington. And speaking of Harper, he and Manny Machado's free agency will dominate media storylines all season long. Whether they play against the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Red Sox, the media of those four towns, the Phillies as well, will keep asking about free agency, although Harper said do not bring it up. But I guarantee you somebody in the media will bring it up to Harper, and it'll be a distraction for him, and it'll distract Machado and the Orioles as well. Madison Bumgarner is the biggest name moved at the trade deadline that nobody thinks so right now. Nobody thinks so right now because the Giants tried to get themselves better and back into contention for the season, but I don't think it's going to work out for them, and they'll realize that they have to move on from some of their better assets that can replenish their farm system, and Bumgarner is their greatest asset. And I predicted on the MLB Predictions podcast that he'd be traded to the Yankees, and I think that is a distinct possibility. As Bumgarner would, in theory, come back from his injury, pitch really well, the Giants are out of contention, and the Yankees come up with the Godfather offer, and the Giants don't pass it up. Two more big-name players get suspended for PEDs. Jorge Polanco of the Twins was already booted for PEDs, and Forrest Whitley of the Astros got suspended for PEDs in the minors. I think two more big-name players get suspended for PEDs at some point in the season, whether they're players on contenders or players on bad teams. Last year, Starling Marte got suspended. So it feels like every year we get that too. Bryce Harper involved in another big brawl. Last year, don't forget, on Memorial Day, Bryce Harper was thrown at by Hunter Strickland in a Memorial Day matinee at AT&T Park. I think somebody plunks Harper and he loses his mind and gets himself ejected from a game and perhaps gets suspended. And who knows, it could very well be Hunter Strickland throwing at him again. The Yankees and Tigers have another big brawl, and so do the Red Sox and the Orioles. Those are two of the bigger brawls in the season, the Yankees and Tigers in Detroit, when the Yankees and Tigers, Miguel Cabrera got hit by a pitch by, I believe it was Tommy Kahnle, and he had words with Austin Romine, and Cabrera punched each other. Gary Sanchez was involved in the brawl. I remember there's a GIF online of David Robertson just absolutely jogging to the brawl. It's funny. And then the Red Sox Orioles, Manny Machado was involved last year, remember. And that I won't be surprised at all if there's another brawl there. Giancarlo Stanton gets a standing ovation in his return game to Miami, and also hits 10 home runs against the Marlins pitching this season. The Yankees play the Marlins 4 times this year. I think Stanton homers 10 times against Miami pitching. Marcell Ozuna and Christian Yelich each hit 5 home runs against Marlins pitching. I believe the Cardinals and the Brewers each see the Marlins 7 times, and I think the two ex-Marlins will each hit 5 home runs against their ex-team. Aaron Judge wins the Triple Crown. This is probably the boldest prediction on here other than Bumgarner being traded. Aaron Judge led the league in average home runs and RBIs at some point last season before he had his slump. I think he can do that this season with his shoulder fixed. He has protection in that lineup with Stanton and Sanchez and Didi Gregorius and Greg Bird once he comes back from his injury. And I think Aaron Judge is absolutely going to dominate and win the American League MVP, win the Triple Crown, although Mike Trout will be right up his butt, and he'll put himself in the conversation with Trout and with Harper for among the best young or best players in baseball. There will be a 20-inning game this season. I believe there was one last year between the Mets and the Marlins, unless that went 19. But I just have a funny feeling there'll be a 20-inning game this season. The Yankees have a 10 home run, or 10 guys who have 20 homers. This is pretty bold. Their lineup is deep. I predicted yesterday that they'd have 300 home runs as a team. Brett Gardner, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Gary Sanchez, Greg Bird, Didi Gregorius, Aaron Hicks, Brandon Drury, Neil Walker, and one more guy. Let's say that's either going to be Gleyber Torres, Tyler Austin, or Tyler Wade. Let's bank on Gleyber Torres, even though he's coming off the Tommy John surgery. I won't be surprised if he has an impact similar to what Gary Sanchez had 2 years ago and what Greg Bird had 3 years ago when they got called up, respectively. So those are my 10 guys on the Yankees. They'll have 20-plus home runs. Major League Baseball record for home runs in a single season again. I think this is bound to happen. 20 strikeout game, and I think that'll be done by Max Scherzer. Don Mattingly, Brian Skinner, Byron Price, John Gibbons, Scott Servais, Jeff Bannister are the managers fired either this season or after the season. I predicted yesterday that Don Mattingly would be the first manager fired, and I think those other 5 guys I mentioned will also be fired at some point either this season or after the season due to either the fact that their teams are A, rebuilding, or B, they fail to meet expectations. Tyler Glasnow and Jameson Taillon proved to be building block pitchers for the Pittsburgh Pirates long term. Those 3 and Mitch Keller will be the top 3 in that rotation for years to come with the Pirates, as I think their rebuild will go faster than people think. They have Austin Meadows and Josh Bell on their team and Gregory Polanco, unless they trade Polanco. I think Marte's trade bait. So that's an interesting team that nobody seems to be talking about. They'll probably be one of the worst teams in the league this year, but they'll be ahead in their rebuild due to their young player developments, and certainly ahead of the Marlins and the Royals and the Tigers. But I think there's a chance the Tigers and the Royals can catch up if they get good packages for guys that could possibly be traded in Fulmer and Perez. And even the Marlins rebuild might go a little quicker if they get a good package for Realmuto eventually. Chance Adams is this year's Chad Green for the Yankees. Chad Green made some spot starts for the Yankees last season and was a stud out of their bullpen. Add Chance Adams to that list. I don't think he'll be one of the prospects traded on this team. The Yankees are very high on Adams. I believe he'll make some spot starts, and he'll turn out to be great for them. I think he'll be worse than Chad Green last year, but maybe better than Jordan Montgomery was last year, like somewhere in the middle of that. 2018 MLB draft first rounder gets called up at the end of the season. I don't know who that's going to be. I haven't really looked at the draft prospects for the 2018 MLB draft yet. Maybe I will at some point later within the next couple weeks. But maybe a pitcher or a hitter in that draft gets called up. Because I remember 4 years ago, Brandon Finnegan getting called up in August for the Royals and helped them in their World Series run in 2014. And then he ends up getting traded to the Reds for Johnny Cueto in 2015. But I think the same thing happens this year. The Rays' new core will be fun to watch at the end of the season. Christian Arroyo, Willie Adames, and I guess it would have been Brent Honeywell if he wasn't hurt. Maybe Brendan McKay makes a surprise call-up at the end of the season. But I think that Rays' young core will show a ton of promise at the end of the season and play spoiler to the Red Sox and the Yankees down the stretch as those two contenders battle out the American League East. There will be a trade that falls through, similar to the 2015 Mets with Carlos Gomez. I just have a funny feeling that happens. Maybe the Yankees try to trade for Michael Fulmer and that falls through, and then they go to Bumgarner for a plan B. Or maybe the Nationals try to trade for Chris Archer and that falls through and they go to Fulmer. Or it's something along those lines. I could see that happening this year. Jose Berrios and Hunter Renfroe are the non-rookie breakout players. I think both Berrios and Renfroe are all-stars this season, as those two guys will have impacts for their respective teams. Marwin Gonzalez is this year's Jose Ramirez, except he's not an MVP finalist. I won't be surprised if Marwin Gonzalez hits 20-something home runs and drives in about 80 runs. He was great for Houston last year in their World Series run and in the regular season. He won't be as good as Jose Ramirez was for Cleveland last year, but it'll be close. Julio Urias is the Dodgers' second-best starter once he comes back from injury. He was a highly rated prospect, shown a lot of potential with the Dodgers when he was up, and now he's coming off an injury, and I think he'll emerge as the second fiddle to Clayton Kershaw in the long term. But I think they make a trade for a Cole Hamels, and maybe Hamels will be their number 3. Urias will be 2, Kershaw 1. And then in the back end of the rotation, you would have, in theory, Rich Hill and Alex Wood. And then Kenta Maeda as your 6th starter and your secret weapon out of the bullpen in the playoffs like they did last year. The aging stars who will decline this season: Adrian Beltre, Miguel Cabrera, Robinson Cano, Buster Posey. It's sad to put Posey into that conversation, but I think it's appropriate because I'm skeptical of the Giants this season. Robinson Cano hasn't been really panned out for the Mariners, although he's had a couple good years, but he hasn't been as good as he was with the Yankees when he was in his prime. Miguel Cabrera showed signs of age last year, and so did Adrian Beltre. And Albert Pujols probably belongs on that list too, but he showed signs of decline last year. So those are your 4 guys that won't be the same players. Oh, and another guy that probably will be on, that I should have put on that list, Felix Hernandez, who has shown signs of decline as well. Somebody homers in 10 straight games this season. I don't know who it's going to be. Giancarlo Stanton had a ridiculous home run streak last year. Maybe it's Stanton. Maybe it's Aaron Judge. Maybe it's Gary Sanchez. Maybe it's Mike Trout. We'll see. But I think somebody homers in 10 straight games. There will be a team that has a 15-plus game win streak. The Dodgers and Indians had long winning streaks last year. Don't forget Cleveland won 22 straight at one point last season in late August and in September. I think there will be a team that wins 15 straight games. The candidates are the Astros, Yankees, Nationals, Cubs, Dodgers. A team has a 15-game losing streak. There's only 3 candidates for this, and that is the Tigers, the Royals, and the Marlins. It's most likely to be the Marlins. I think the Marlins are going to be a laughingstock this season. And I mean a laughingstock, I think a couple of their rookies will be nice guys, but they're just a joke. That's the team I think will have a 15-game losing skid. And my last fun, random, miscellaneous prediction of the year, Eloy Jimenez is this year's Rhys Hoskins. I think Jimenez gets called up mid-season and puts on a show and is this year's Rhys Hoskins for the White Sox, as Rhys Hoskins did his thing for the Phillies last year. And then 2 years ago, that was Gary Sanchez for the Yankees. All right, that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow looking at all the baseball matchups for tomorrow, recapping hockey and basketball, and going over any other news that breaks. We'll talk more Odell Beckham tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great day.